Alright, do not God video presentation. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. Anyway, it's a response video to some blithering genius he calls himself. Blah blah. Yeah, not really. Either one. He's not doing the blithering thing. He's very articulate. And not a genius. So it's very articulate babble, is what he should call himself. Articulate babble. A simple question, this whole life thing, right? The argument is, I would argue, it's a bad deal. It's a lemon. It's not worth the price. Okay, too expensive. Simple argument. Life's too expensive. The problem is that you don't pay for it. Okay, the person who decides to create living things isn't paying for the price. They're, forcing something else. Some other consciousness will have to be brutalized by their decision. And so that's what makes it totally unethical. So it's not only stupid, it's like gambling. So it's really dumb, I could argue. On top of that, you're gambling with somebody else's welfare, which makes you fucking evil. So it's stupid and evil. There. Simple. And you're going to say something. In this 3-hour video, you're going to say something to unravel either one of those arguments. First, that life is insanely and sillily expensive. Way too expensive. Not even close. It's $10 million bubble gum. It's so silly. And you're stealing the $10 million to buy it. And you have a counter argument. I don't think you do. So anyway, 3 hours. So we'll just see what kind of babble. 3 hours worth of babble to try to tell me that I'm wrong to think, that making whipping boys, making something to be whipped, and then to say thank you for not whipping me when they don't get whipped, they get lucky, is a good idea. Yeah, I don't think you can do it. Hello? You should be talking now, damn it. Oh, of course, it won't work. I have to use this.
I'm going to respond to a video by Mendham. His video was a response to my video titled Efilism Arguing the Argument. Before I get into this, I have to explain a few things about my video and his video.
I have it sped up. I wonder why does it do that? The keyboard works and then the keyboard doesn't work. Just so annoying. So I really don't think you need to explain all this crap. But go ahead.
Or this won't make much sense. My video was an analysis and critique of Efilism. It had 2 parts, analysis and critique. The first...
Oh, I mean, really, too silly. It should build one right into the other anyway. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. What, you're going to analyze the argument when the argument is, again, made so simply. And the rest of its arguments have already been made. There's no God. There's evolution. Maybe you don't understand that animals feel. I mean, but I shouldn't even have to argue that.
It was a description of Efilism as based on 4 foundations. Biological realism, a psychological asymmetry between pain and pleasure.
This has nothing to do with psychological asymmetry. Okay, it has to do with the fact that the universe doesn't have a wound you can heal. You can't do something for the universe to fix it because it's not broken without humans in it. All right, and the argument is kind of a simple one that all you can do is make a mess here. You can't fix something because it's not broken. So then you break something and then fix it partially and say, good, I did something. No, you didn't do anything productive. There is no productive. There's only fixing our errors. If we don't make errors, then there's nothing to fix, nothing to correct. The Martians are doing just fine.
As a theory of individual value and
this is where crap. There's no individual value. It's a group game, whether you like it or not. So that's just a silly argument. There's no context in which any rational person can say it doesn't matter what my effect is in getting what I want. Of course, it has to be understood in the context of the world that exists. Women can be harmed, they can be raped, all kinds of negative things can happen to them. This is not about just psychology. This is about a physical reality that you can't extract your happiness for free.
As a moral value. I talked about each of those foundations and how Efilists arrived at the conclusion that life is bad based on those foundations. In the second part, I gave critiques of 3 of the 4 foundations. I explained that I am a biological realist, but I reject the other foundations, and thus I am not an Efilist.
Yeah, so the other foundations would be he rejects the fact that other things feel, that animals have a welfare stake just as important as our own, that there is no, it's important what happens to me, it's not important what happens to all the other known robots to exist, that they all are doing the same damn thing, they all have a consciousness. If I have a broken leg, it's not special. If somebody else has a broken leg, it's just as significant. If you can't understand that, why would I even waste 3 hours on you, right? Why would I listen to a video by some idiot who doesn't know somebody else's broken leg is just as meaningful as my own? And I have no reasonable philosophy. There's no reasonable philosophy that extracts me from that fact. No reasonable philosophy. Only an irrational lunatic thinks his broken leg matters and everybody else's doesn't.
I gave some specific criticisms of Mendham's fallacies, and I talked a bit about my worldview and the big philosophical question of the purpose of life.
Who cares?
And each part was about 20 minutes long. So the whole video with the wraparound, etc., was about 45 minutes long. And Mendham spent an hour and a half responding in...
Yeah, and I'm responding to a whole subjects that are provoked by every sentence somebody speaks. I can speak of 10 different words, and in those 10 words there are numerous concepts that can be discussed. And so it's my liberty. I have a right to talk for as long as I wish to about certain subjects. And some points I'll spend 2 hours on, and another half hour of your video I might spend 2 minutes on. So again, just horse shit.
Quotes to my video, but he only got through the first part of it, the presentation of Efilism. He didn't really get into the second part, which contained my critiques of Efilism and in which I talked about my own beliefs.
Who cares? Again, why should I give a shit? I mean, if you can't get to the point, what's not my problem, it's your problem. I'm not really interested in doing anything else but hearing your counter-argument to the argument that because of evolution, we're playing a really bad game that makes a lot more losers than winners. It would be really stupid for somebody to put another quarter in the machine and say, let's make more losers. It's great making losers. It's good fun. No, it's a retarded.
So he never really got to my beliefs or my critiques of Efilism. He knew that my video was not pro-Efilism, and that in some sense it was anti-Efilism. I
don't care what the fuck it was. It was obviously some sort of counter argument, and I obviously treated it like a hostile piece of shit. So what the fuck is this? What is this horse shit? What I knew. You made a response video. You nagged me into responding to it, and I responded to it. That's what happened, shit fuck.
Ugh. And so he came prepared to fight.
Just like this video, okay? He nagged me into it. I mentioned it, assuming that, yes, eventually I'll get to it. And then the little prick weasel has to type up a raggy little comment whining again. It's like, what the hell? You're a little attention whore? Ugh, pathetic.
Against me. But he never got to the part where I present my criticisms or state my views. So he spent an hour and a half fighting against a presentation of his own philosophy.
Bullshit. Your characterization of a philosophy, and that's what it was. It was your characterization. You didn't present anything. You can never even say the words right. When do I sit there and waste my time talking about morality or even any extensive conversation about any idea of altruism and all of these concepts? It's just horseshit. It doesn't make any fucking difference. The argument is the argument. You get to the core of it, and that's the only part that matters. The rest is just bullshit.
That made his video kind of bizarre. His response mainly consisted of 4 things. The first is just general sermonizing, ranting, and babbling, which is what he meant.
Yeah, whatever. Fuck you too, asshole. And you want me to listen to 3 hours of your babbling then? Fuck you. I made my argument quite clear. If somebody listening to this video, you heard my argument. It's quite clear, right? And I've made it previously in more extensive detail about, yes, I think animals actually are sentient beings. They feel, their welfare matters, and nature is horribly cruel. It kills, it creates losers in preposterous proportion to winners. Insane numbers of children killed for every mature adult. And I'm saying that's stupid. Only a moron, okay, would invent a machine that does that or support a machine that does that. It's not that complicated.
Well, he does. He just goes over and over the same topics, the same issues, using the same kind of rhetoric. He just sort of circles around.
Yes, and that's all you assholes do as a response is this kind of twatty bullshit. You can't make a Kant out of a Kant. Yeah, you can.
Around the same thing. He fell into that groove a lot during his response. So a lot of it was just him kind of ranting about stuff. Another major component was what I'm going to call disagreeing to agree. He would take something that I said about Efilism and restate it in a more verbose way.
No, I'd state it in a way that's correct rather than your incorrect, loose and sloppy way. Okay, the fact is you describe things in this, and again, perverting them into your philosophical realm of pixies and hobgoblins and bullshit. No, there's none of that in my statements. And so as soon as you start hobgoblining, okay, the subject, then I'm going to protest and say, no, that's not what I'm about. That's not what I've said, asshole. That's your perversion. I'm not interested in morality. I mean, they're interested in value of statements of fact.
As if he was disagreeing with what I had said or correcting it. And that's what makes it kind of confusing. I would say something about Efilism, and then he would say no, or something like that, and then he would restate it. Saying more or less the same thing, but in a different way, all kinds of elaboration.
Yeah, again, I can just reiterate. Everybody listening to this video knows that you can pervert a sentence in a little tiny subtle way and make it say something entirely different. So, you do have to be a little bit careful about how you describe something, especially fat women. Oops. Pleasantly plump, right? You got to use the right rhetoric. More to love.
Metaphors and stories and all this stuff. Basically turn it into a rant and say basically the same thing, as if he was disagreeing with what I had said instead of just restating it. Okay, so that was a lot of his response. He also did a lot of arguing against an imaginary opponent. See, like I said, he never got to my criticisms of Efilism or my beliefs, but he came prepared to fight. So he felt like he had to argue against somebody and something, even though he was responding to a presentation of Efilism. And so, in addition to disagreeing to agree...
I mean, it's just such a pile of shit. You're obviously hostile to the idea. You're saying you somehow debunked its logic or its reasoning. What the fuck is this crap? Pretending that you're on my side? You agree with me? No, apparently you completely don't. So what the fuck, asshole? What are you, retarded? You really don't understand the concept of what agreement looks like? You don't look anything like an agreeable sort, asshole. I critiqued you.
He also would just make up an opposing view and then argue against it. And he also kind of made up an imaginary person to argue against. So that was kind of...
Well, you don't create any person, do you? You're not really a person. You couldn't even put a fucking image in your video. You give so little give a shit. You couldn't even find some images that might represent your ideas a little bit, and just to give people something to look at. Lazy ass.
Bizarre. And I suppose I should mention that I have offered to debate in Mendham more than once.
What offer to debate what? Again, you have to have a subject that's somehow confined to some sort of reasoning. I have no interest in debating Kantness. Okay, I mean, I couldn't give a shit about your little catches and word games. I've made a simple statement. It's either true or untrue that it's a good idea to make living things. That something that had all knowledge of how the universe functions would have an opinion. And what we're trying to deduce is what would that opinion be. And I see no reasoning, absolutely no reason why anything that wouldn't be somehow humanly somehow biased, why they would at all say, no, the Martians are doing just fine. And look at those Satonians go. Go, Satonians, go. They're winning all over the place. No cancer, no suffering. Yeah, they've got the right strategy.
He has ignored those challenges. So,
fuck you.
He didn't even have to respond to my video. He could have gone through my criticisms in real time with me. If he wanted to argue...
Why would I want to do that? Again, I like video exchanges. I think it's a good idea, but it's when you can't get to the subject, that's what sucks. I mean, it isn't that complex. There's evolution, okay, which is brutal as our origin. So our origin absolutely sucks. And then there's this simple truth that there's nothing to fix here but the mess we make. Well, how do you argue with that, asshole? Universe is doing just fine without us. Again, the death rate. No death rate at all. 0 death rate.
It's me. He could argue directly against me in Skype. I have offered to do that. Right? I have challenged him to do that.
Well, that's just a pile of shit, okay? So prove it. Prove where you sent me some sort of reasonable message indicating you wish to schedule a debate using Skype. Show me the evidence of this.
And he has ignored those challenges. And then when he responds to my video, he doesn't even listen to my criticisms of Efilism or my specific criticisms of him or my actual views. Instead, he argues against an imaginary opponent that he just makes up on the fly.
A pile of crap. You're the faker with no real identity here. And again, so just prove to me you sent me an email of any kind of request for you have such an urgent, great argument to make. And did you show me some example of some great argument you have to make? So again, what would the purpose of a live? You spent 3 hours. You had 3 hours to present your case here at trial. What good would a debate between the lawyers do? Okay, it's really just about the evidence. And so what are you going to accomplish in this debate?
Okay, so this is not only dishonest, this is cowardly. Another thing he did a lot of is bitching about terminology. Now this is the closest he came to making a valid criticism.
Yeah, so again, it's the closest he came to a valid criticism. So he just says bitching about terminology, and then he says this is a legitimate argument to be made that yes, people ought to be really careful about the terminology they use. Morality and ethics are different kind of words, and they're used in different contexts, and they really should be carefully used, because one, in my opinion, is slanderous, morality, and the other is perfectly sensible, ethics.
Some of what I said, but it was still retarded. I think he just assumed that I was going to use little tricks or something, little word games or whatever, But of course I didn't. I presented Efilism clearly and logically, okay, using terms that are accurate and that are well defined.
Okay, and my video stands for itself, okay? I'm sure my video is making it clear that you didn't use the language I would use. You didn't use words I would use. You tried to put words in my mouth. As an Efilist, you try to tell me what it means. I made it clear what it means to me, all right? I don't need you to sit there and put your gremlin language on top of it. I'm not going to accept your gremlin language. Shove that up your ass. Quote me or fuck you.
And I gave the definitions of certain terms so that there would be no confusion. So his complaints about terminology are complete bullshit, and I will show that as I go through this.
Oh, good. There's not going to be any showing of anything like that.
And throughout his response, he kept saying that I was putting words in his mouth. He kept accusing me of...
Yeah, so it's already started. Here we go. That's all you got is a counter-argument. Because your argument relies on mush.
Deceiving my audience by pretending that he had said certain things or whatever. And that's a lie. At the beginning of my video, I stated that I was going to present Efilism as I understand it, and that Inmendum might not like the way I present it.
Yeah, well, let's see. How do you understand something that if I'm the guy who invented the fucking word, then I guess I would be the source of your understanding, wouldn't I? So I guess you didn't get your understanding from, like, the garbage man, or from, you called an attorney or something. Or where did you get your understanding except from maybe my videos? And you're sitting there telling me that you're not misquoting me when you put words in my fucking mouth. Well, fuck you, you are. So you're just so full of shit. You're going to tell me what Efilism is. Fuck you.
So I was very clear about that up front. I never put words in Inmendum's mouth. I accurately described his beliefs.
Liar.
And it's incredibly hypocritical of Inmendum to accuse me of putting words in his mouth, when throughout his entire response, he argues against an imaginary version of my beliefs that he projects onto...
There's no imaginary version. You're somebody who wishes to make excuses for torturing other creatures that you have no right to torture. And you're going to sit there and tell me, no, I have a right. It's the right of I can, so I should.
He just makes shit up about me and then argues against it. So this is incredibly hypocritical. And I just want to point that out. Now you might want...
Yeah, you can point it out with some evidence. So is that evidence going to be part of this 3 hours of bullshit from you? So far, we don't have any evidence of anything. I'm the one playing your video. You're not playing mine yet.
Why I use different terms than Mendham. Why don't I just use Mendham's terminology?
Yeah, that's right. Why don't you do what would be the civil thing to do to recognize that I should get to define my own subject, that I should be allowed to define my own definition of my own belief systems in my own fucking words, and I shouldn't have it perverted by some weasel like you who wants to convert all ethical conversations into moral conversations when it's to your advantage to do so. When you want to eliminate the idea of the value existing, you turn it into a religious conversation. That's your business, but it's dishonest, and you're the obvious one playing the word game.
Language. Well, because I'm presenting Efilism as a system of ideas for analysis and criticism. So I use clear, well-defined terms. Mendham doesn't do that. Mendham tends to use metaphors and emotionally charged language.
I use the same ones over and over, and analogies. That's right, those are perfectly valid things. Little kid on a tightrope. What asshole puts a child on a tightrope over a bunch of cancer swords? What fucking idiot does that?
His rhetoric depends a lot on appeals to emotion and intuition. Okay? He loves
No, there are appeals to logic. Logic is part of what we are doing here on Earth. We learn what up is and what down is, and we learn what pain is and what pleasure is. And we learn that I'm not stupid enough to say, yeah, go ahead, I'll pay $50 to have you stick a nail in my eye. Yeah, I'm not dumb enough to buy a bad deal.
Logic, but he doesn't make clear logical arguments. And he likes to complain about terminology, but he doesn't use clear terminology himself. And I'll just give one example now. Mendham will not state clearly whether he believes that there's more pain than pleasure in life. And he doesn't even like talking about it in that...
Bullshit. Life as a whole thing, an individual life can be all kinds of things. But life in general, my whole point is that it's preposterously more pain than pleasure. An insane amount of pain for every bit of pleasure. For every second, if we took the temperature, the pain-pleasure temperature, yeah, it's a very, very cold universe in terms of if pain was the cold. It's frozen. It's so cold. So another lie.
Instead, he'll say things like, there's a lot of red or blood. It's all blood. It's all swords hanging from the ceiling, right? So he'll use metaphors that imply that there's a lot of negative stuff in life and very little positive or no positive, or the positive...
Yes, I've made that clear too, that whatever happiness or joy there is to be had, it's had in a superficial and trivial way, in the sense that what you're gratifying are just needs that never needed to exist in the first place, and most people's satisfactions are so high maintenance. I mean, they need to rape many virgins to be happy. They have to, they're not even satisfied with, chalk. I'll chew a piece of chalk and it'll make me happy. No, they need it to have all kinds of extra sugar.
Doesn't compensate for the negative. But he doesn't clearly state something like, there is more pain than pleasure in life.
So it's just a silly statement to make. Obviously, I'm saying it's a bad deal. That means we're paying in pain too much. See, the currency is pain and pleasure, right? That's the value thing. The diamond, you could say, is your pleasure. And we pay for it with the pain. I'm clearly saying we're not getting a good deal. And you're imposing it on somebody else, what makes you a criminal. Imposing a bad deal is a bad thing to do.
He doesn't like to do that. Maybe that's him being weaselly, like trying to protect himself by presenting things in a way that seems really forceful, but is actually kind of vague. So he can always, dodge criticism.
So again, nothing's been vague. So just this insanely stupid lie, and I don't even know for what purpose he's doing this line. What am I going to scapegoat and talk about how? Oh yeah, but there really is some kind of great pleasure, or there isn't, or what is it? What is your catch-22 to this thing? How can I possibly use this vague language on the subject to my advantage? In what way could it ever be to my advantage? I'm clearly saying there's more blood. I use terms like blood footprint. Why the fuck would somebody use the term like blood footprint, okay, if they weren't fully aware that we're paying too much? I mean, amazing horse shit.
So if there's a valid criticism of how I presented it, it would be that it's too coherent, too rational and too clear. Yeah, maybe Amendum doesn't really have such a coherent and logical system of beliefs. And I've kind of discovered that going through this response, that he doesn't, in some cases, know what he believes, or he seems to have contradictory beliefs that he...
This is all talk, no walk so far. So far, just talk. All bullshit. Not a single shred of evidence or logic presented yet.
kind of juggles. But anyway, I had to present it as a system of ideas, clearly and concisely in 20 minutes, not in thousands of hours of rambling and ranting and stuff. So I dug out the substance of his philosophy and I presented it using clear...
And look, it's hardly hidden. Again, the argument is simple. The act of living is a negative thing, okay? It's a short straw on average, and some people get really short straws. And the worst part is you're imposing it. So if you were taking this stupid risk with your own welfare, it would still be stupid as fuck, all right? So it's like Evel Knievel, knowing that he's going to crash, knowing that he's never going to make this jump without crashing. Well, that's dumb. But if he forced somebody else to do it, knowing what the results were going to be, that would make him evil. There. That's the argument. Fuckhead.
Well-defined terms and logical relationships. And I make no apology for doing that. Alright, so anyway, I wanted to go through those things in advance so I don't have to say them over and over. So as I go through this, I will point out where he's disagreeing to agree, arguing against an imaginary opponent, or, just ranting. And when it comes to specific issues about terminology, I will address those specifically. But I wanted to make these blanket points first, because they apply to a lot of his response. Okay, so this will hopefully save time in going through this. But having said that, it's still going to take a long fucking time, because I'm responding to a giant pile of bullshit. Now you might think, well, why bother? Why respond to a steaming pile of bullshit? Well, that's a good...
Yes, and I can ask exactly the same question. Why waste my time? Why waste my listeners' time dissecting this mush from this mush head? Okay, this blithering asshole. Why? Why? Well, because this is what human beings are. The fact is, this turd represents, a kind of philosophical position. These wishy-washy, mushy, nothing's real kind of fakers, okay, that just have some notion of a gluttonous philosophy perspective that has nothing to do with the actual, look at the actual experiment that's on planet Earth and look at it as an experiment. Just imagine if somebody actually had sent in the environmental impact statement. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create these animals that eat each other, all this brutality, and on top of that I'm going to put this little smart layer of schemers on top of it. And they're going to have things like world wars and invent nuclear bombs and radiation and all kinds of... Yeah, right, like that's a good idea. Like we would say, yeah, go ahead, approve that. No, it wouldn't get approved.
Question, and I didn't want to do it at first. I thought it was a waste of time. But after I forced myself to listen to it 2 or 3 times, which was extremely unpleasant, I decided that I could make something interesting out of it. Okay? And I think I can. I think I can make this interesting in 2 ways. One is talking about Mendham's rhetoric and how it works. Talking about the fallacies and the way that he used...
Yeah, I could just make funny faces through your whole video. I can do some pantomime. Maybe I can do something to rescue these videos. But yes, this is just more of your evasion. Blah, blah, blah. Blithering blitherer.
Rhetoric and stuff like that. And the other is that I'll expand on some of the philosophical issues that were raised in my original video and are raised by Mendham. Okay? And I'm not saying Mendham has no interesting ideas or interesting philosophy. I think Efilism is very interesting. That's why I've been talking about it. But Mendham does not present it clearly and concisely in a way that it can be engaged.
Horse shit. More talk. Prove I don't present the good arguments, that my Frankenstein analogy or the drunk driver analogy or the kid walking the tightrope or asking the question, well, how many lion cubs do I have to kill brutally before you say that's too expensive for one lion? We're killing 10,000 baby sea turtles, squishing them to death. So there's 10,000 on the table. I'm going to squish them all to death from one turtle. One fucking turtle reaches maturation. I squeeze to death 10,000 of them. What number does it have to be before you say no mas? Don't make no more fucking turtles. Is that too complicated a question for you? One you'll never fucking answer, you coward.
With rationally in its original form. And so, yeah, there's a lot of bullshit you have to wade through. Having said that, here we go.
Anyway, so there's this guy called Blithering Genius. Probably should be called Literate Idiot, because, yes, he's a little bit literate, but he's an idiot. You have to be.
So I used the same joke in the other video. Yeah. Yes, he's articulate, but for no good purpose.
In life, I mean, frankly, it's just so overtly in your face. If you calculate out the facts or pay any attention to them, there's nothing to be proud of here. The human race has not managed its existence well. All the living things are just described as sitting in the bowl of a meat grinder, just waiting for their turn to be ground up.
There, aren't we done? Come on, it's over. You already lost the debate. There's no counter analogy for what's going on here. That's all it is. It's a meat grinder. Even the winners lose. They get drowned in the quicksand. You know, they get to float on top of it for a little while like little helium balloons, and then their helium runs out and they're glub, 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 glub. You know, they're withered and destroyed. You know, go look up the pictures of Farrah Fawcett towards the end. Life is cruel and stupid.
In this pointless struggle that's often insanely difficult. I mean, you earn every one of your scars. You look at people in the more native condition and you see, they have a shorter life, and they look like they're 80 when they're 35. Life isn't easy, and it's a struggle. And what is the definition of winning? Creating losers. So you make a game called Make Losers, right? That's winning.
Oh man, I am brilliant. I mean, how does he recover from this? There's no recovery. You've already lost the argument. See, and he just lets this play. Why? Because he's not going to respond to any of it.
And you play it. Well, then you're an idiot. There's nothing else to say. So I'm just when you add up all the facts, it's just a dismal story, a sad and pathetic one. It's just sad. I mean, it's sad that these attributes of consciousness and awareness and intelligence come with this liability of, well, the only way you derive them is through this sentient mechanism, and where we've been engineered by a biological system to basically just crush, kill, and destroy. It's just a sad story. But let it go. I mean, why would these people use whatever intelligence they have to defend something that's just undefendable?
Yeah, geez. So he says that's inarticulate, imprecise, unclear, ambiguous. I somehow don't know what I believe. That guy, I am totally confused about what he thinks. I don't get him at all. Didn't he just go through all this trouble? He just spent the whole fucking beginning of his video to say, listen, this Inmendum guy is too inarticulate, too imprecise. He's just playing with words, blah, blah. How could you get clearer? How could I say it any clearer than that? In a nice, natural, friendly, unscripted way. I mean, it was a really nice, elegant, come on, let's just deal with the truth. Light. I just can't believe this fucking lunatic thinks he can pick that apart. That he could find a single flaw in that as a wonderful piece of improvisation. I have well done the theater of describing the tragedy of our existence.
It's just notions in their head of some sort of accomplishment. There's no way they can create any sentences explaining what they've done except I had an imaginary thought in my head that I'm wonderful and that life is good. But you don't have any evidence. You don't have anything to back it up with except, yes, winning is a very good game. Well, I mean, making losers is a really good idea. No, it isn't. Only a literate idiot could think so. But anyway.
Alright, so you get the idea of what this will be like. A lot of preaching and insults and general babbling. He says I'm defending...
So again, there's no generally babbling, and it wasn't even about you. That was a clear argument defending Efilism. Defending the simple argument that this is way too expensive, and it's for what? Ballroom dancing. There's nothing to put on the, what did you make for all of this trouble?
Life. And this is the beginning of the imaginary opponent. My video was not a defense of life. I didn't.
Then what are you doing? What is your whole fucking point then? What is this then? You're arguing because, well, this isn't technically white, it's off beige. Yeah, this is off beige, it's not white. What are you doing here then? What are you making these videos for then? You fucking lunatic.
Frame it that way, and I don't see it that way. The video he's responding to is an analysis and critique of Efilism. And at the end I said, I affirm life. So
so you've made it clear. How do you in the end say I agree with him that buying lemons is a bad idea, and certainly forcing somebody to be tortured to have your lemon is even a better idea? I affirm torture, imposed torture, because it's a good idea to torture for this wonderful thing called life. I'm affirming. I mean, how can that make any sense? I'm on your side, except I'm pushing exactly the opposite direction. I mean, you don't think you're a blithering balloon head.
I'm a lifeist, you could say, but that's from my perspective. So first of all,
fuck! Whose perspective are you arguing from? You're supposed to be arguing that your perspective has some sort of rational integrity, that you can defend it as being reasonable, that you've done the little trials inside of your brain and tested your ideas and belief systems. You're not telling me you believe it because your big toe believes it, are you? Is that your argument, that I innately believed in it? Is that what you're arguing from? It's the argument of less than a religion?
life needs a defense. I'm not positioning myself as defending life, and I don't think you...
Oh, fuck this. Right? I mean, should I even go any further? I mean, he claims he affirms life, and then he says, I'm not defending it. What the fuck? And you're telling me that you're not the one completely fucking language, being insanely duplicitous in your use of verbiage. How the fuck do you say I affirm something that you say is wrong or bad or evil? No, I think it's evil, but I affirm that it's a good thing that people are raping. Even though rape is bad, it's good they're raping. What the fuck?
Are compelled to value the same things as me. I don't think there is a uniquely rational value theory that everyone is compelled.
Oh, you don't think there's one universe and we all exist in it, okay? It either is cupcake or it is nail in the eye. You think there's a duality, and the nail and the eyes don't know the difference between a cupcake and a nail. Oh, we don't know which one we are. We're in a nail cupcake duality singularity. No, there's one truth. There's statements you can speak, okay, compose, arrangements of words, and they have truth of value. They're accurate or inaccurate. All right, asshole. And there's just has to be a simple truth. It isn't, the car isn't $72 and the car isn't $7,000 and $7,682,000,000. All right, it's one thing. It has two headlights, not 3, not 17, not, everything is something to be described. It's one fucking universe, and there's one fucking truth. If we don't agree on that, there's no conversation because you're fucking insane.
By logic or reason or whatever to adopt. And I said that at the end of the video. I said we're not forced to accept or reject life.
So this is just idiotic. I'm saying we're forced by reason. The whole point is to have the trial, and you convict or you don't convict. I'm saying the evidence is preposterously on the side of you are evil if you impose, and you are stupid, okay, if you try to jump your motorcycle over 674 million elephants.
Okay, so does that sound like a defense of life? No, not really. That's Amendum's framing, because that's how he sees it. Right?
So, again, what's the difference? I mean, frankly, agnostic asshole is just the same thing. You're just playing a game here, okay? You're saying there's no value difference. I'm saying it's obvious there's a value difference. It's the whole thing I'm arguing. I'm not making the difference. I'm not forcing it to be true. The facts are forcing it to be true. It's not something I'm advocating because my big toe says life sucks. My brain says it, fuckhead. For a rational argument it's been made to it. It wasn't born an antinatalist. It figured it the fuck out, you stupid shit.
He's anti-life, so I must be pro-life. So,
you just said you affirm it, so that's pro-life. Yeah, so again, who's playing word games? I mean, this is almost so offensive. I should just stop here. I should just say you can't reward people who are this duplicitous. To complain about a word game when somebody plays so overtly a word game.
So he's griping about the fact that I have 1,000 videos on the subject. Yeah, books are really thick too. You must really hate those because books take time to read because there's lots of ideas that have to be developed. Ugh.
I don't know how many videos he's made. He probably has something like 5,000 hours of video, I would guess. Anyway.
Whatever, who cares? What does it have to do with this subject of Efilist? Oh, that's right, absolutely nothing. Somebody who's talked about it a lot, so what? There's gurus and all kinds of people that have been talking for thousands of years about bullshit. You're going to critique that too? Who are your heroes? Your philosophical heroes. Let's see how much jabbering they did. Probably Nietzsche and Kant, right? You seem like a Nietzsche-Kantian bastard, bastard of those two.
Let's see if if he has any response, because yes, that's all he's talking. This is the futility of Kant and the arrogance of Nietzsche.
Philosophies of half religion and half Nietzsche nihilism. Anyway, continue, douche.
All right. He's really offended that I made a little joke about how many videos he has made. Now, I didn't intend that as a criticism, but it is a valid criticism.
That's the irrelevant part. Get to the Nietzsche part. Are you a Nietzscheist?
Of Amendum, that he can't clearly and concisely define his beliefs.
All right, so another pile of crap, right? I mean, the beginning of the video he just played, this video even, the beliefs are clearly laid out, very concisely, very few words, very nicely stated. It's evil to put children on tight ropes over, stainless steel daggers of doom, when there's a high probability they'll fall.
He rambles. He doesn't use clear terminology. He uses emotionally charged metaphors.
Some more horseshit, emotionally charged. I don't even use bloody images. All right, I'll use the metaphors for robots and different kinds of things, but I don't even take advantage. I could show you squished turtles. I could show you sharks just feeding on them. I could show you lots of things. Their little fins all bitten off. I could show you deformed human beings. I don't do any of that. So this is just more of a bullshit argument. I mean, I'm trying to de-emotionalize and de-charge. I'm not exploiting it. I'm barely even using it. I say blood footprint. I don't show blood dripping.
And he goes over and over the same ground, but he can't condense his views down into something simple.
So what? It's just such an insane statement. I mean, it's just so insane. The preamble to this video is a nice, simple, concise statement. This lying sack of shit is saying he didn't understand. He didn't get it. I'm clearly saying evolution is a shitty mother, and the world, is a shitty place to be born into. The game of evolution is just a bad game. No sensible, intelligent organism plays it.
So they can be analyzed and critiqued, or even just understood. And that's why he doesn't understand what he believes. That's why he doesn't know that he has assumptions, because he has never tried to condense it down into a form where it would become obvious that he has these assumptions. So yeah, it is a valid criticism.
So, point out the assumption. So there's no assumption here. So we left with Kant and Nietzsche. That's where I left off my statement. That's all he's validating, is he's one of these morons who can't figure out that evolution is a significant subject, and that all the other organisms are doing exactly what we're doing, except they lack language skills and mathematics.
I probably should have added it to that video. And then also he's starting to build up the imaginary opponent in his mind. He thinks I'm a Kantian Nietzschean bastard. No, this just came out of his imagination, right? I didn't say anything about Kant or Nietzsche in the video he's responding to, or anywhere else. I don't think I've ever mentioned Kant or Nietzsche in anything I have ever.
I'm just saying, you're talking just like one. All right? There's no distinction. The ambiguity, the mush that, you do it because you're built to do it. Nature says so. Be a bug. Because you've been born to be a bug, be a bug.
They have nothing to do with my worldview. I read a little bit of Kant and a little bit of Nietzsche back when I was in university. And I've read The Story of Philosophy by Will Durant, which is a great introductory book about philosophy, the academic subject. But yeah, I didn't do philosophy when I was young, when I was thinking about these big issues, by reading books. I did it by thinking. And, you know, a lot of it I did when I was a kid, and I didn't even know what philosophy meant.
Oh, this has got to be somehow a preposterous lie, because, right, anybody who does it naturally as a kid doesn't play the word games you just played. I mean, where, well, yeah, no, I advocate for life, but I don't defend it. You know, I'm pro-life, but I think it's a horrible thing. Yeah, nobody does that.
Even know I was doing philosophy. When I was thinking, is there good and evil? Are these things real or not real? What is the purpose of life? Is happiness?
I mean, even that debate, right? Good and evil, placed against, right? It's not good and bad. Did he say good and bad? No. He said good and evil, right? That's the game being played, right? That's like using the word morality, because he wants to pretend evil isn't a real thing. Bad isn't a real concept, because he's going to call it evil instead of bad. He's going to make... the only mistakes he's going to count are deliberate mistakes in a world where only imbeciles exist. And so then nothing can be wrong or stupid because, you know, they're all imbeciles and they can't know better.
Is possible? You know, what is truth? I was thinking about these things, but I don't think that I knew that that was philosophy. Anyway, I'm not saying people shouldn't read Kant and Nietzsche. I've got nothing against them. I'm just saying this is just coming out of Mendham's ass, right? He's just making shit up.
No, I'm not making anything up. I mean, there's a clear correlation between people who share your view, okay, that somehow you are value ambiguous. You think the universe is value ambiguous. And that's Nietzsche and Kant.
More concise presentation of Efilism. It's not just a presentation of the philosophy of Efilism, it is also going to be a critique of it.
Yeah, well, you can't critique what you don't understand. And, well, frankly, okay, so he seems to gloss it over, but, you know, use his own vernacular, his own verbiage, his own words that he puts in people's mouths as if they would say things like that, like morality or hedonism, you know, words that nobody who's a functioning Efilist would use.
Right. I mean, I've never made any videos ever calling desire or selfishness anything like hedonism. Ever. The word is a silly, made-up pile of crap word. It doesn't have anything to do with anything real that exists, any psychological elements or anything. It's just a silly, stupid, religious kind of word.
Because they don't capture at all the essence of the subject.
All right, I think Mendham was going to say, well, frankly, he does understand it, at least to some extent. You know, I think he was going to admit that, and then he stopped, and then he started bitching about terminology. And he's going to do that a lot.
Oh, so go ahead and make up your own little fables again. No, I did exactly what I did, which is I think you're an idiot, all right? And you clearly don't understand, because why would somebody who understands waste time putting words in my mouth I didn't say? Why wouldn't they just deal with the metaphor? Why wouldn't they just answer the question? How many sea turtles? If I forced you to have to squish all the baby sea turtles, the 10,000 of them, all right, and you had to do the squishing, what number do I get to when you say, I don't want to do this anymore? I don't like this job. Sea turtles are too expensive. Let's not make them anymore.
But yeah, I'll address his specific complaints as they come up. Okay, now Mendham is going to babble for a few minutes about a single sentence that he agrees with. And this is what I call disagreeing to agree. So I wanted to call it out because this is a great example of it. And I've inserted some little sound effects.
Oh, see, so he couldn't leave it alone. I mean, just amazing. So we have to have sound effects now, right? So he says he has some evidence of something, and now he has to put sound effects on the evidence. Why would you do that? If he had a good argument, why would you resort to that? See, because you don't have a good argument. We're going to see. It's obviously not going to be a good argument, right? So again, more duplicity, more game playing, more horseshit from this asshole who's, desperately seeking attention. And that's all this is about. Just some fucking weird ass attention whore. He wants everybody to look at his little black screen. Maybe in the dark over there, he's puckering his anus in and out at us, in the dark.
In this, so you can hear when Mendham is agreeing in substance. All right, so this is what I call disagreeing to agree. I'm going to try to pack that all into a fun-filled hour or so. So what is Efilism? Efilism is...
All right, so I'll read it for you. Efilism is the philosophical rejection of life. That doesn't even mean anything. It's a philosophical, understanding of life.
Yeah, well, it's true, right? Why would I never said we should reject life. I never used the word rejection. It's not like you're turning down somebody for a date, okay? I've used words like it's insufficiently sufficient, insufficiently efficient. I mean, very precise language. And this asshole again just playing the game.
As being things like inefficient, unproductive, no net gain, not profit.
Zero-sum game. All whip, no carrots. They just take the whip away now and then, and you feel like a winner when they take the whip away. That's it.
The opposite of not profitable. You think, yeah, loss. Okay, but you're running. It's not a good idea. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting thing. It's got an interesting history. 4 billion years, 2 billion active years of evolution. It's a nice story in terms of it's got all kinds of interesting characters grew out of it, tyrannosauruses and whatnot, lots of stuff on Earth to find interesting. But it's a tragedy, a horrible, awful tragedy.
Now, what is he claiming? Where's the lack of distinction here, the lack of clarity about my position? I mean, it's just amazing.
All these organisms over all these millions of years have endured all these horrible, awful experiences. Conscious experiences of being dissolved in the stomach of another organism. Just Freddy's nightmare, right? You could just say there's not any difference between a Freddy nightmare movie and the natural world. It's just as bad.
See, this is the whole problem with video responses by others. See, they complain that I interrupt every 2 seconds. If you don't, then what the hell is the point? Where's his response? He's not responding to any of these points being made. All of these points are being raised, all of these analogies, all of these descriptions, all of these images, and he's not countering them with a single fucking argument. Why am I playing my own video? That's what I end up doing, right? I play somebody else's. I play my own video, and then they'll get to some stupid thing. They'll wait for me to make some sort of brain fart error, and they'll jump on that. But they don't pay any attention to the substance of the argument is right there in his face, and he just lets it play. Again, how many sea turtles is too many? How many baby sea turtles do we kill? How many lion cubs? When is it too many lion cubs brutally murdered? Slowly, brutally ripped to shreds? How many?
Fly, kicked out of the nest because you're number 3 and you're not allowed to be number 3. Only 2, just no, number 3, too many. So fuck you, kicked in the face, kicked to the curb, and left to be dissolved in something's belly. Yes, I reject that as a good idea. If that's what you have to make your cake out.
So he puts a bell sound in. So you're saying you affirm life. I'm saying for this obvious reason I don't affirm it. I don't think it's a good idea to kill children. Stop doing it. Gee, that's too... You can't pick a side of the fence to be on?
If your little fun cupcake has to be made out of that, you fail. It fails to be a good idea. It fails to be a good design. If you're looking at the architectural blueprints, you say, the damn thing's upside down. You got the roof in the basement, you got the basement, the cement on the roof. You got it all backwards, fuckhead. So, yeah, don't build it. I mean, unless you want me to call you a fucking idiot, a sadistic fucking idiot, because you're just going to cause a bunch of harm. So, yeah, that's what Efilism is. It's a recognition that, yes, although life is fascinating, it's also tragically hard. The price paid for it is insanely too high.
I've said it again and again and again. And where is he going to argue that the price isn't too high? Where is he going to show us the rational reason why it's doing something so spectacular that it's worth giving children cancer for? It's worth torturing victims. I have a right to put the straw in the kid's pocket, and I have a right to give the kid cancer and force him to suffer it. Where's your argument? Where do you have that right? Where do you derive it from? Because it's completely irrational. It's unreasonable. It's an unreasonable act. That's the clear statement. And when it's unreasonable, that's synonymous with wrong.
It's such a non-bargain that no rational person buys it. Only somebody with some sort of insane motivation. I don't know what your motivation is to defend this slop. What is your motivation? You're expecting a big inheritance or something? I can only imagine it's some personal thing for you.
Okay, so that's disagreeing to agree. Is Efilism...
So again, there's obviously you can't be agreeing with those statements and say, yet I affirm life. You can't do it. It's idiotic. It makes no sense. I just pointed out how the car doesn't work. It doesn't have any wheels. It's it's an absolute piece of shit. Okay, and you can't buy it at the price we're paying for it.
The philosophical rejection of life. Yes. But Mendham can't just agree with that sentence and move on. He had to babble and sermonize for several minutes as if he was disagreeing. And you can see he's also elaborating on the imaginary opponent. He's imagining me as someone who's getting a big inheritance. No, I'm not getting an inheritance. I left home at...
I'm attempting to figure out your motivation for defending life. Why would you say I affirm it? It doesn't make any sense. You're saying you agree it's made out of these shitty ingredients. You'll probably concede that, yes, it mass murders children. Why are you saying it's okay? Why are you saying rational, sensible, intelligent people should do it?
With a backpack, and I haven't really gotten anything from my parents since then, other than, Christmas cards, that kind of thing, but not a lot of parental input. And, I have no inheritance coming. Pretty sure about that. So this is bullshit, but also it has nothing to do with philosophy.
It really wasn't a direct accusation, as if it was a desperate effort for me to attempt to profile your psychology. Again, what are you defending then? Why are you making videos, pro-life videos? Why are you doing it? In spite of all the evidence, you're saying, I need to go make a pro-life video. Even though I'm not really pro-life. Well, what are you doing?
Why isn't Mendham talking about this stuff? Well, I think it's because he can't just talk about philosophy. He can't just engage with ideas as ideas. I think he needs to make it personal. I think he needs to fight against a person.
All right, so let's just understand 99% of what he just played in that clip, okay, had nothing to do with any personal crap, any of that shit. Those were clear arguments being made, and he clearly evaded them. He just rings a silly bell. Ding, ding, ding. What does that mean? If you agree, then the conversation is completed. The debate is over. If you agree with me that there's just evolution, if you agree with me evolution doesn't have any innate intelligence and can't make good recipe, it doesn't know how to mix the ingredients carefully, okay? It doesn't value consciousness or torture. Clearly, it doesn't care how many baby turtles get squished. It'll make the number any number. It just couldn't care less. And we're smart enough to know better. There, we're done with the argument, aren't we? Oh, fuck.
So he has to imagine an opponent that he would enjoy fighting against, right? Somebody that he doesn't like. Because that's how he emotionally engages with philosophy.
So I'm just saying, just for anybody watching, it's such a dishonest statement. Clearly, I made arguments, clear arguments, not personal arguments, not any of that shit. I made clear arguments about why life is futile, stupid, and on top of that, criminal. To impose is criminal.
The philosophical rejection of life. The term Efilism comes from life spelled backwards. Life spelled backwards is Efil.
Who cares? You have to tell them that much, then this game is really over, right? You're writing a book to complete idiots. Yeah. You have to tell them what life spelled backwards is?
And thus, Efilism. As far as I know, Mendham coined the term and invented the philosophy.
Yeah, well, I only did that because nobody else could say something like an idea and put it into some sort of words. So they were using words like antinatalism, which really doesn't have a damn thing to do with it. And so, yes, there was no word, so I had to make one. So I made a cheap one. Really inexpensive. I didn't pay much for it.
At least in the form that I'm going to present here.
Whatever. Your form that you're going to present here, that's not my form. Won't be my form.
Other people have viewed life as bad, either emotionally or perhaps philosophically.
Yes, whatever that even means. Emotionally. I don't know. Other people have said, I don't want to. They said something like that before. Or they committed suicide. Yes, that's sort of a commentary on the function of life. You could argue that some of that was emotional. My boyfriend doesn't love me. Blah, 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 blah. I have to kill myself. Some sort of personal bullshit. And yes, people have in the past philosophized on what are the consequences of there being no God. Aren't we really in deep shit? And that's the simple purpose, right? It's a simple point to be made. It's, yeah, it's unintelligent design. Guess what? The drawing sucks. Don't bake this cake because it will make you sick. And all you assholes are basically saying is, well, I didn't get ALS and I didn't have any bad.
Yeah, isn't this a simple argument? I just made the point, right? Evolution is unintelligent design. It can't make edible food, okay, except by bizarre luck, and it hasn't been lucky. All right, killing 10,000 baby turtles is not lucky. That's not a lucky good answer.
And I'm doing okay, so life must be okay. And that's all you're doing. You're just going from your own personal perspective as you're walking out of Las Vegas, the winner, thinking you're a big winner, and you're not accounting for the fact that you just made a lot of losers. You're just a selfish douche.
Okay, notice that he just called me a selfish douche. And I want to point that out because...
Yeah, but I didn't think you were an insane douche, okay? So those are my choices. You're either a selfish douche or you're insane, okay? Because you have some belief system where there's no such thing as value in the universe. When I am already experiencing it, I know there's value in the universe, and it's a manifestation of conscious function, brain function, sensation. That's the source of value in the universe, the whip. The whip only has meaning because it causes sensation. I mean, fuck.
He uses the word selfish as an insult all the time, but he rejects the word altruism. So when I say that he has a moral value of altruism, he disagrees. He gets mad and says...
Yes, because I think it's horseshit, and I've explained why. Because it's the hierarchy of our ego, our brain is lizard, ape, human. We can do the most reasoning in this human type style language-enabled brain. But everything I do, I have to make the ape jump on the grenade. The ideas can't do anything. The doer always has to be the monkey inside of us, and I have to make the monkey think it's a good idea. So I have to make it something I'm self-interested in. So even when I'm doing the right thing, I have to make an argument that puts the right thing with a bunch of bananas. So the ape inside of me says, I want banana! And, I'll do the right thing because I'm thinking I'm getting bananas. So, yes, I can't do anything really altruistic because I always have to make the ape believe it was a good idea for me. It was my right choice, too. I didn't do it just for them. Yeah, I did it for me. I selfishly got myself blown up, trying to rescue some 13-year-old girl under a gas truck. But the truth is that's how I'll get blown up, is because I selfishly figured it was in my interest to do so.
Well, that's a lie. But he's always using the word selfish as an insult. And that implies that selfishness is bad. Right? If you use it as an insult, that means...
Of course it's bad. It's retarded. It's irrational. That's the whole point. Any selfish act, okay, being selfish is, just without any intelligent purpose, without the selfishness being engineered by an intelligence to understand it, to have a good purpose, without it being bananarized, is innately not a good source of the right answer. What's in it for me is not a good question to ask. And so as soon as you're asking it, you're already doing something unintelligent.
Bad, and generally speaking, that kind of insult means it's morally bad, right? And if you think selfishness is morally bad...
So again, didn't he just do it again? So I hate the word moral. I'd never use moral concept. It has nothing to do with moral. It has to do with value. And I'm saying that it's wrong. It's dirty to the logic. It's unfair to the reasoning. It's unfair to the argument. Okay, and so instead of accepting those words, he uses morality. No, I'm saying it explicitly. You distort the truth. Distorting the truth is not a good idea. Distorting a statement isn't a good idea. So, and he just did it. You saw him do it. Again, attempting to call any definition of value in the universe a morality statement. When, no, I have the evidence. I'm quite convinced by it. I'm personally conscious. I'm experiencing consciousness. And your bullshit isn't going to make me believe that having a nail in my eye is the same thing as me having a cupcake, because they're not the same thing. There's a value difference between the sensations I can experience. And the value is cavernous in the difference. The difference is insanely large magnitudes of difference between the worst feeling you can have and the best feeling you can have. They are so fucking different. And that's a fact. You say it's a fallacy. You say it's made up. I'm saying it's the most elemental, important fact in the universe. Is the fact of the difference between a positive and a negative sensation.
Then you think altruism is morally good. And then he's also elaborating on the imaginary opponent some more. He's imagining that I've never had any bad luck, that I'm walking out of Vegas thinking I'm a big winner, not accounting for the fact that I made a lot of losers, blah, blah, blah. Well, this is all bullshit. It has nothing to do with me or with what I was saying.
Well, you didn't counter-argue anything I said either, so that's the whole point. None of these analogies mean anything to you. You don't defend against any of them. You're clearly, and when you're imposed life, you're clearly gambling with somebody else's welfare. Why should somebody be allowed to gamble with somebody else's welfare? It doesn't make any sense. Why should people be allowed to do that? Why is it a reasonable act to gamble with somebody else's welfare? Could you answer the question?
I was saying that Efilism is one way of rejecting life, and people have rejected it in other ways. So, for example, someone might say, I hate life, and jump off a bridge. Or an existential nihilist might reject life as a...
Yeah, and clearly I'm not making arguments about go with your feelings, am I? No, I'm not making videos about that. I'm making philosophy videos arguing for a truth, okay? The truth is, in a sense, physics. It's a physics argument. I'm saying these are the physical facts of our existence. And they equal something. They equal, it's not a good idea, okay, to engage this risk mechanism, to open this negative door to harm, because there'll be nothing you'll gain for it. You will not let any fresh air in your barn, okay? You'll gain nothing. You'll just open yourself up to huge losses. Many, many, many dead turtles.
Absurd and meaningless. Not as bad, not as hedonically or morally bad, but as absurd, as without meaning or purpose. And those are different ways of rejecting life.
So again, did they use the one because it's absolutely bad? No. So again, absurd or whatever the other bullshit was. I mean, it's overtly negative. And the word negative is clearly tied to torture. Torture is a negative thing. The experience of torture is a real thing that happens in the universe, and it should be minimized, period. And the best way to minimize it is not to open that stupid door.
The person who jumps off a bridge is rejecting life emotionally, personally, performatively, but not philosophically. The existential nihilist who rejects life as meaningless is rejecting it philosophically, but that's not Efilism. So my point was that Efilism is not just the rejection of life, or even just the philosophical rejection of life. It is a specific philosophical rejection of life.
Again, this is more bullshit. So again, this has nothing to do with suicide or rejection of life or any of those subjects. It has to do with whether it's morally appropriate, ethically, value equation, rational, to impose life. To first vote for it and then vote to impose it. I mean, even if we could, I don't even know how you can do it. Even if they could impose it on themselves, if we could selectively somehow be put outside of the realm of being an eligible consciousness to be born into the world, which there doesn't seem to be any way to stop that from happening, because it's completely just the same kind of event over and over again. We all get here the same way. We weren't someplace waiting. It's not a soul that's getting reincarnated. It's just a sucker, a fool, a jackass reincarnated. A generic device. So even if they could impose it on themselves, I'd still say it was so fucking stupid.
Based on specific reasons. Does Amendum disagree with that? I don't think so. But he had to babble for several minutes as if he was disagreeing.
I do disagree.
Now, I want to just address one thing that is kind of stupid in what he said there. He seems to think that winners create losers. So, you go to Vegas, you win big, and that created losers. Now, that's not true. If you go to Vegas and win...
All right, it is true. So, okay, statistically, it all comes with the real price. Okay, for every head, there's a tail. So it just depends on the proportions and the relationship. But clearly, I would argue that I can make a very good argument that any pleasure you ever feel has to come out of a pain, a hunger, a negative created inside your state of being. And it is the release of the tensions and the aggravations and the fears and a lot of other things that create any kind of euphoria you experience. Your euphoria is made out of relief. It is the whip stopping. And it feels damn good. But it's just the whip stopping.
That doesn't create the losers in Vegas. The game creates the losers. So whether you win or lose, there will be the same number.
So again, it's just a word game, right? So he's going to pretend that guns don't kill people, people kill people. This kind of bullshit argument that somehow I can pretend the things essential to the creation process aren't essential to the creation process. They're essential. If you could eradicate the losers, then I'd say Las Vegas is just fine. Go ahead and gamble. But that's not what we're talking about, is it? You don't have any prospect that you're going to actually be able to sit there and control consciousness in some way where you can say, I didn't have to impose any negative on this being to bring it into existence, when of course you have to. It has to have some knowledge of hunger and starvation to have any kind of appetite. You're going to have to give it a bad memory.
Losers, right? It's just the odds of, they're baked into the game, right? That there will be more losers than winners. So whether you're a loser or a winner doesn't change the game. And the same thing is true of life. You win at other people's expense in some sense, and you win at...
Yeah, there's no football without the other teams that lose. There's no... So again, this is just a silly argument. The losers are integral to the process, and if they weren't there, there wouldn't be any process. There wouldn't be any U.S. Open.
That's other life forms, but by winning, you don't increase the number of losers, because the number of losers is baked into the cake of life. So there's a kind of fallacy there. Like it's kind of, I guess it's like a fallacy of composition. He thinks that the whole is just the sum of the parts. So if you're not a winner, there would be fewer losers. But that's not the case. Somebody else would win, and there would be the same number of losers.
So again, just more horseshit. You're going to violate the probability. So the number 31 is going to come up every time, when that's not what it's going to do. So again, it's just this, I can create a fake roll of the roulette wheel that isn't in the real probability realm, and it won't be connected to all the other numbers having to come up an equal number of time also. So he's just saying I can make a special case where I'm outside of the real game, and I'll just make a winner, and then I'll walk away. It's not a realistic scenario. It has nothing to do with anything rational. You've irrationally redefined the parameters of reality. That's not what's possible. So why are you arguing for it?
So I just wanted to point that out because it is kind of relevant, and it is kind of important to understand that.
No, so that's the perfect example of the word games he wishes to play. So he's going to waste 3 hours of my time, and it's going to be more like 6 hours. In terms of how much time I'm going to have to waste playing this tripe. So we got through a half an hour. So we were less than a quarter of the way through it. So anyway, we'll call this a video. And I guess I have to make the thing bigger to see what time it is. I'll have to make sure I remember what time it is. So anyway, just horrible crap. Let's see, what do I need? I need this fellow. Alright, so till the next time and such, and so forth and whatnot. I don't know when I'll get to this stuff. I'll try to do it every night, but we'll see. I might have to, day on, couple days off, blah, blah, blah. See what time's available. So, till the next time and such.